As I said, my name is Joe Amlung. Also with me today is John Payne. We both work with Open Concept Lab, and I also want to introduce Grace Potma, who she's giving a little cameo today for our OCL for OpenMRS piece. John and I work with the Regan Street Institute in Indianapolis, and we work on a product called Open Concept Lab, which is an open source terminology management system. So I'll go ahead and get right into it. So first, just a little bit of context. Terminology is like a language for people and systems to communicate their health data, like code sets or standards such as LOINC. And a terminology service helps to facilitate these terminologies and standardized data to make it more shareable and implementable. And so terminology management is necessary for semantic interoperability. Without standards, data exchange can be very resource intensive, but with standards, data exchange is much more attainable since systems have something to align with. When it comes to a terminology service, standard terminologies can be the source of truth and provide guidance and structure rather than leaving individual entities to make their own structures that inevitably would end up diverging. And when it comes to open health information exchange, the terminology service is the registry for standards like concepts and codes, and it provides these terminology resources to the point of care to help standardize data and serve as that point of truth. And so just to give a couple examples of what a terminology service can do, if it sees if a code system like ICD-10 is available. You can see if codes exist within a code system. If you're looking for code translations, like a mapping between a LOINC code and a local code. If you're looking at value sets, if one is available or you want details on it. These are all the kind of things that a terminology service can do. And so I wanted to show this terminology management maturity model just a little bit, just to show the stages at which someone can adopt standardized terminology, because currently many countries are maturing past this emerging stage. And you can kind of see these red pieces here that it's a very steep climb going from the emerging to the shared electronic reference. And a robust approach here requires alignment across projects, systems, etc. And that requires both a computer readable access and human readable access. And that's how the terminology makes sense to the systems and to the users who are going to be using it. John, anything? I heard a little bit of noise. Is anybody trying to say anything? Okay, perfect. Just wanted to check.
Yep, that's great.
All right. So given all this context, I next want to jump into Open Concept Lab. So this is where OCL comes in. It is an open source, globally focused, cloud-based terminology management system dedicated to helping the community collaboratively manage, publish, and use their metadata. This shared central service alleviates the need to implement local infrastructure until your business requirements are more sophisticated. OCL has a powerful API that gives real-time access for any system to get the most up-to-date terminology content. And so here is how OCL can help an organization. Content like a reference terminology, for example, this content can be defined, loaded, and managed. And then when an update comes to this content, it can be maintained using OCL's versioning. And meanwhile, this content gets to be in use when it gets integrated into tools using OCL's API. And it also gives users an interface to explore and to understand the content. So OCL's toolkit is made up of two primary products, which one of them is the core terminology service, the more technical backend piece. This is where the content is stored and becomes API accessible. And then the term browser is more of the front-end user-facing piece. It visualizes the content and makes it browsable for users. Now, these two tools come together in OCL Online, and this is a place where key terminologies are readily available for use in the cloud. I'll be touching upon all three of these in these sessions, so we'll just get a little bit more into detail. So first, let's start with the term browser. And this is kind of where most users get started with OCL. This is the first thing they see when they're getting into terminology management with OCL. So the OCL term browser is a powerful and customizable web interface for interacting with terminology content and with the OCL terminology server. It's where most users get started, and it provides access to 100% of the underlying terminology service functionality. And that includes its multi-tenancy, meaning that organizations can have their own space to load content, similar to how GitHub allows organizations to make their own spaces for code. And it also lets users get to the versioning features where you can track changes to terminology content over time. And so using this interface, users can browse, easily browse, search, filter, etc. with the terminology content. And here is an example up here of OCL's global search, where users generally, this is kind of their first search page, where they'll look at all the public content that's hosted by OCL. And then users can create and manage their own content in this interface, and they can map that content to reference terminologies like ICD and more. But something kind of unique about OCL is that it focuses on the presentation too of one's own content. So users will be able to explore and understand it better. And I'll give a little bit of an example of that later, but it allows the users to not only search and browse, but also do, for example, like down here, a side-by-side concept comparison view when you want to see the differences between two concepts. Or users can also do things like downloading content and other things. But OCL has also been building up its functionality to improve this display of content via customization. So Term Browser allows configuration features out of the box for administrators. So that'd be like putting your own branding on a page, making a view look the way you'd like to, and more. And then, of course, the content authoring is something that people can do through this interface. And you can also connect to FHIR and SVCM compatible terminology servers to view those too. And so I just want to give an example of where this kind of customization can be valuable. Take these two use cases that our in-country friends have done. Malawi and Ethiopia have both had to create their own user interface for the customized display of their terminology content. This is what the term browser is working to alleviate. So rather than having to invest resources into user interface development, you just need to configure OCL's term browser to meet your needs. And then you can have a kind of interface like this with much, much fewer resources invested. And so just to give a quick example of this configuration, I wanted to give a before and after. So we're showing the CL dictionary here, where on the left side is just the OCL default view. There hasn't been any configuration done, might not be the perfect way to view the content. And so with some quick configuration, we're able to make custom tabs. We're able to make it look the way we want to. So in this case, we're only looking at diagnoses. We could go to another tag and only look at drugs and things like that. So it took just a couple of minutes to configure this interface into tabs to make it show it the way that works best for the content. And so this is where I actually want to throw it over to Grace real quick. Grace is going to talk a little bit about OCL for OpenMRS. Grace, can you speak on this?
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. Yeah, so we want to share how OCL is helping OpenMRS users across the globe to unlock better terminology management. So next slide. So, you know, earlier it was mentioned how you can use OCL's API, and we are very much experiencing this at the moment. So we have built in our concept management, or OCL squad in OpenMRS, a web app that's enabled and rests upon OCL's API and OCL's database. And the whole point of this web app is to make concept management easier for OpenMRS project leads or terminology team members who use OpenMRS. And there were a couple key reasons for this. One big one was that organizations wanted an easy way to reuse their previous terminology work, whereas at present, for many implementers of the EMR, there's all kinds of fancy spreadsheet-based and rather convoluted manual ways that terminology is reused across sites, even within the same organization. But the other key need was to quickly find trusted examples. So for example, the screenshot that you're seeing on the right here is from a simple and quick search that shows me the publicized work of another organization, in this case, MSF in Bangladesh, the dictionary that they're using for an NCD project. So that's one benefit, is that you can see what other organizations are doing. Could they publicize that work? And then the other key benefit is that it's very quick to use trusted sources to quickly pull together a trusted dictionary. So for example, CL is one of those examples of a trusted source. And it's very quick to grab the concepts that you need without having to kind of recreate the wheel each time that an organization is doing a new implementation. Next slide, please. So this web app is plugged into two places. Next. So first of all, as I mentioned, it depends on OCL as the backend and CL as the as an example key tool based within OCL. Next. And then this all quickly goes into OpenMRS. You can upload your dictionary and your concepts within clicks and within moments. Next slide, please. So we do have a case example of this, and a link to the full case study with some videos is in the bottom of this PowerPoint, and I can share it in the chat too. But now we're actually looking at some of the concepts from the MSF Bangladesh dictionary that's been publicly posted in the tool. So this is a nice way of seeing the tool being used in real life. It was used to support Go Live in Bangladesh just a couple months ago, and now we're working with a number of new users to support their use cases as well. Thanks so much. Back to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grace. Really appreciate it. And so you kind of had talked about how you were using the OCL terminology server in your own use case. And so now I want to give a little bit more information about the terminology server itself. This is OCL's powerful API. This is that more technical side where you can submit requests for OCL content and then receive a response. I won't get super technical for this presentation, but just wanted to give a couple of examples and little details. So as we said, OCL's terminology server is this backbone of the OCL toolkit. It's where you can deploy and implement your standardized and local terminologies. This is REST API compatible, compatible with the OpenAPI standard, that is. And this supports, as I said before, that versioning and multi-tenancy. And it can be used with OCL Term Browser, or it can be standalone, or, you know, and as Grace kind of pointed out, can be used in other contexts, other use cases. We're also working on some FHIR and SVCM compatibility. That's kind of in a beta stage. I'll talk about that in the next slide. And it's built on these kind of modern technologies like Python, Postgres, Elasticsearch, and it's also Dockerized and available on Docker Hub. We've got links for more information here. I hope these slides can be sent out after this presentation. Here on the right is just an example of JSON results that come from OCL API about a particular concept, but it's many more kinds of results that you can get than just concepts themselves. So definitely explore if you're interested in that more technical side. So I wanted to talk a little bit about FHIR terminology services and SVCM. FHIR is that up and coming standard for exchanging healthcare information electronically, and FHIR has defined terminology resources and operations to interact with them. There's also an IHE profile called SVCM that specifies the minimum set of FHIR resources and operations for a terminology repository. And so OCL has been working up the functionality to be conformant with these terminology resources and the profile. So with this buildup of FHIR support, OCL allows users to manage the resources in FHIR format. And so just a couple of simple examples here. You can get a code system from, here's the CL code system in a FHIR format, or if you wanted to look up specific code in CL, then you can do that too using FHIR operations. As we said before, OCL Online is this space where you can use OCL's open source tools in the cloud alongside the global community. It's already preloaded with key terminologies. OCL's terminology service and term browser are themselves independent tools that could be set up on your own infrastructure. But if you wanted to get started with OCL right away, this is where you're interested in OCL Online, this community-centered terminology clearinghouse. And so this is the centrally hosted site where you can use OCL in the cloud. There is publicly available content in there. You immediately get started with it without needing to install on your own servers. Then over time, this will feature reference terminologies like ICD or metadata from PEPFAR's MER content or other content like HL7 code systems value sets. This is where you can also upload your own content and immediately start mapping that content to reference terminologies, and then you can share with others who want to use your content. So if you'd like to learn more about OCL, please visit our newly launched website. We've got the link down here. This is the go-to resource for the OCL community. You can access links and descriptions for our tools. With the launch of this new site, we're also doing a fresh perspective on the community aspect of OCL, which is the network of people who see terminology as the core to an effective healthcare system. We are wanting to provide a platform and give best practices that support the deployment and implementation of health terminology. And we definitely invite people to participate and join in our community through our community meetings. We've got the architecture, the development, and the OpenHIE terminology service communities, which have their own schedule for calls, and those can be found on our website. So just wanted to thank you all for your time here. For more updates, please visit the OCL website to join our mailing list. You can get all the OCL updates and blogs. We'll be doing demo videos, presentations, and more if you ever want to learn about OCL and how it can become a part of your eHealth architecture. Thanks for your time.